Hey guys, welcome to the channel here. We're going to be doing a tutorial on how to kind of go through the process of building a placeable, setting all that stuff up. It's going to be a fairly long video and there will be multiple videos all at the same time. Today, this video or video one of this series is primarily going to focus on looking at like designing and laying out things. And then along with, I believe the foundation, things just due to time constraints. I'm trying not to make them terribly long, but ultimately, like a lot of this stuff can't just be done in 5 minutes, unfortunately. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Hopefully, it can help shed some light. I will say this is the way I do my buildings. I'm sure there are many, many, many other ways that people do their placeables, and I'm not here to say that mine's better or anyone else's is better. This is just my opinion on how I put together my placeables. Any nonsense in the comments below will be removed, and people that do that will be blocked. So just throwing that out there. You know, this is a more of a learning video than it is anything, and that's how the atmosphere should remain around it. So I expect that to occur in the comment section. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So right now I am sitting in Blender. I will be using Blender 3.6. I do have both the community i3D exporter installed along with the Giants' i3D exporter installed. All that has been installed before. I will try to link a video to that either during this time snap or in the comments below. So, but first thing first, we're gonna have to go design it. So that's gonna be another clip that I will do for my iPad, and we'll get back to Blender once that's done. Hey guys, so I just kind of want to go over kind of how I design, kind of some ideas and stuff to my head because unfortunately there's not a ton of actual like blueprints for uh, people that build placeables and FS to follow. So we kind of have to not necessarily engineer our own way, but like kind of set it up that way. So I generally try to draw some more of the complex buildings out a little bit, just so I have like a reference of kind of what I do. But oftentimes I actually don't, and I just kind of go for it in Blender. But with this being kind of like a tutorial series, I just kind of want to, go and kind of draw out kind of what I want to do here, and that way so it kind of gives you guys an idea of how to like set up your stuff as well. So um I do have to do this on my iPad. That was saying just to kind of draw it out by hand. And I'm having to record it on my Mac, and I'm not using my normal boom mic to record it. So I do apologize if the audio is a little rougher, but we'll get through it. I'll try to clean it up fairly decent in Adobe. But shouldn't be an issue. I kind of pre-checked it earlier. It didn't sound bad. So we'll get going here. So kind of the first thing I kind of want to do is just kind of give a design, not necessarily measurements, but just like a generic kind of design layout of how I want to do this. So I'm kind of thinking about doing kind of a two bayish shop kind of building. So it's be, we kind of go here and have one wall, and then we'll go here and we'll put in another wall. It's not really snapping, but it'll work for what we want it to do. So it's kind of what I'm thinking here. We'll try the shape tool here. That seemed to work-ish. So we'll erase that line, erase that line, erase that line, and erase that line. Perfect. So this is kind of what I'm thinking, and what we'll kind of do is have kind of a shop. Whoa, that was wild. Oh, we'll actually change this to like a different color here. Have like a shop door there and a shop door here, and then we'll have like a entryway door kind of in the middle here, and then one off to the side. So I don't really exactly have measurements of exactly how I want to do this yet. Um, but what I generally try to do is just like think in my head of, how wide do we want things? So on this one, we might kind of do like trying to think of, 30, we'll do like 25 foot on the doors. Generally, once you get up to like larger spans, like 30, you'll kind of want more of a bifold door anyway. So what we'll kind of do is we'll just go here and I'll make kind of a mark there and we'll go here and just write in 25 feet. Do the same thing on this side. And I apologize for not using the same color. So we already have that done. So those are 25 feet. So we're already up to 50 on that side. So, uh, you know, I don't really know why. Okay, now there's a favorite. And I want to add that to my favorites. So, what it says. Does this help with anything? No. Okay. Scratch that. Okay. Anyway, so now we have that done. So we're already at 25, 25. And ideally, these doors, change it over to a blue here. Uh, we're generally looking at like 30, 30-ish inches on these doors. However, in FS, the character has a very hard time getting through 30-inch doors. So generally what I do is take them up to 3 feet and then just try to keep the ratio somewhat decent so it doesn't look really weird. But it also, it's an actual functional door and your character isn't getting caught all the time. So go here, once again, not drawn to scale at all. We'll be at 3 feet on that door. So we'll go and add another 3 over here. So that puts us at 53 feet wide. So you're looking at like a dry van trailer wide at least. And then now you got to think about like kind of what you want buffer wise, because if the entire front side of the door, you won't have structural integrity. So, and you also want to be able to have like distance on the sides to have like workbenches and such. So I'm thinking in this area, we'll make it like 10-ish feet. That way, then you can have like enough room to, like, still move around, but you can have racks or storage or whatnot. So, and we'll do the same thing on this side just to keep things kind of symmetrical here. I write 10 down. Yep. Okay. And then in the center here, so we're at 75 or 73 feet, excuse me. So we'll go up to, we'll try to make it like 85 feet wide. So if we're at 73, that puts us at 12. Split between those two, that means this would be 6 foot, and that would be 6 foot. So, and I'm just gonna run through and make sure the math checks out here real quick. So 10, 13, 19, 5, carry the 2, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. Yep. So we're at 85 feet wide, which is probably pretty typical for a building like this. So we're at 85, and you kind of want it deep enough that like you can get like a lot of machinery in. So I'm thinking like 60-ish deep. That was something like you could back in a semi trailer and there'd still be enough room. We can't like put the entire truck, but like you can get the trailer in. Or we make it 80 by 85. I don't know what the the square footage is on that. That's also a wide truss span as well. Uh, let's look at the calculator here real quick. So 80 by 85, so that's 6,800 square feet, which is pretty big. Yeah, we'll just go do 80 by 85. 80 by 85, and we'll have this door here. And what we'll do is we'll put it at 15 foot. there, and then the door itself will be 3 foot. So you're at 70, so 67 on this side. Perfect. Anyway, so that's kind of where we sit now. Once again, definitely not drawn to scale here. Ideally, if it was actually drawn to scale, we'd probably be looking at not even that. That's still also not a square. So, uh, and this is going to be a fairly long tutorial series. So I'm really not even like going to try to make the videos short, basically. Like, it's just going to be very, very hard to be able to the shorter tutorials and make them work like correctly. So, um, if you're looking for a very short tutorial on how to build a building, I don't really necessarily have that for you here. So that will have to work. So, we're at 85 up here, and we're going to be by 80 over here, which comes out to 6,800 feet squared. Um, anyway, so we're on 80 foot, or yeah, we'll have basically like 80-foot spans on truss wise. So what we'll do is we'll have one truss on the edges, and then we'll have one down the center. So 85 divided by 2. So that's at 42 and a half. And then ideally what will happen is you divide that and we'll have one at 21.25 and also another one at 21.25. The problem is that will definitely be right almost smack dab on top of a door. So it'll kind of be, we'll have to build like a structure around it. But I'm going to show you guys a couple things that where that if can comes into play is how you want to set your shop up, basically. So I don't know exactly how I'll do that out. This tutorial is not going to be recorded in one day, basically. It's going to be like a longer set to where I have time to like work on things. So, but ideally, what will happen is you'll have, your shop door here, and that I beam will come down like on top, and then like your steel frame will take the weight outwards and then down. Ideally, that's kind of how you have to set it up. It's not really the best to do it, but if you're building it right and you have enough structural support, you shouldn't have any issues. Because ideally, what you'd want to put, your larger I beams here and then on top. But whenever you're only dealing with, 15 foot of space down the center, you don't really have a ton of space to do that. And then you're talking about a 40-foot span of no support, which is, it's honestly possible to do. I've done a couple red iron buildings in my lifetime of what little short lifetime that's been, but um, I've done a couple, and I think the largest we've went out to is 35. But yeah, we'll see how this goes. We honestly might not even do actual support beams. Everything might just be hid by 10. We'll see. So, ideally, that's where we sit now. Um, so we kind of have that drawn out. What we're gonna do is 1 foot. Uh, well, actually, we'll do a flat slab instead of a raised slab. So, and then depth wise, we'll make this like 3 foot, and then we'll have like an apron that kind of comes off the front here. and we'll make that 15 foot here. Switch over there, 15 foot, and we'll go from 0.5 foot to 0 foot on that grade. So uh, it won't be very steep at all. Just enough to keep the pad above water, basically, is what we're aiming for. So anyway, that is kind of the foundation wise of what we want to do. When we start talking about how we want like the front of our building to look, we'll do that there. So we were talking about having our door. That is awful. My gosh. Um, there. I don't highly doubt that's centered. Anyway, uh, it's probably not centered, but it'll work for what we're doing here. So we have that. Then we'll have our more of our shop doors over here. Boom, boom, boom. And so we're at 25 on width. Really, we'll probably do about 20 foot tall. So, should be some pretty good sized doors that you can fit majority of equipment in. That's kind of my goal here is you can pull a lot of stuff in. Uh, it's gonna be more like a mechanic type shop instead of like a storage shop. So, but yeah, so that's what we're gonna kind of do. We will also have, I will set this up and we will work through it about having, uh, like dual colors on it. So, for instance, like, come on, you know, I don't know why I chose green there. Like, you want it red down here, and then you, gray or something for up here. So, something like that. And as we kind of go, I might explain a couple more things. I get into a lot more detail once I get actually into Blender and actually working on the project itself. Um, but you don't have to have you don't have to have a tablet to do this. Like I said, I just use my iPad. I have it for school. That's the only reason I have it. If not, I just literally draw it out on paper. But my handwriting is not the best, and I get to a lot of chicken scratch when it comes to mapping out these buildings. So, but yeah, so I'll kind of like doodle on it, and what I might do is set up like if I need to draw something, I'll probably just like screenshot it and like put it over the video instead of like recording a separate video off script to talk about it basically. So anyway, that's that. So now that we have the designing out of the way, now we're gonna kind of start moving into actually putting together the building. So back in Blender again. So once you install Blender, you kind of just go to general. That's generally what I do. One of the very first things I do is I hit in, or you can use this little trigger up here. And what it does is it pulls out like the transform menu. And I use that a ton. Um, I'm sure other people don't quite use it as much, but I do, and I that is literally the first thing I do anytime I get in Blender. The second thing is I go to the scene button here, and I click the units, and I will change this to Imperial. I'm sure we'll have people that watch the video that do it in metric units. I'm just customary with imperial units, so that's what I'm going to use. It's just easier for me to picture things in my head, thinking about feet and inches versus meters and centimeters and all that stuff. So that's what we'll do there. If you want to use inches, you can. There's a lot of different uh, things there that you can use, but I will leave it in feet since we are dealing with the building. Sometimes in implements and stuff, I will change it down to inches, but that's just not needed in a building. So what we have in front of us is just a ordinary cube that starts out, I believe it's like 2 meter by 2 meter by 2 meter, or is like 6.5 feet um, cubed. And it's I use it pretty much. I don't really necessarily delete it because I mean there's really no point because if you add another cube, it's just gonna be the same thing. So what we're gonna be working with is that 80 by 85 foot foundation. So what I'm gonna do first is literally scale it out to 80 by 85 foot. So uh, you can see we have the directions up here kind of rotating as we rotate with the viewpoint here. So I'm gonna try to make it to where we're looking in it at like kind of like this standpoint here. So X will be like the front and then Y will be like the sides. So if X is going to be the front, that means it needs to be 80. So we'll go there and make it 80. So if you put the dimensions in, it will automatically make it that size. Dimensions will be your friend when it comes to buildings. At least they are my friend anyway. I don't use a ton of like pulling faces in buildings and such. Like sometimes if you extrude stuff, yeah, but like most of the time dimensions are fairly easy just because everything's dimensional in the building side. So now that we have that done, Y will be 85. So that is going to be our pad for the building here. It's just a big rectangle at the moment. So what I generally do is I take Z and I make it down to a 5 foot. That way, so it's thick enough that like if for some reason the dirt doesn't transform right, it doesn't like clip out or anything like that. And then so now that that's done, I'm also gonna go and delete this bottom face. I do that for pretty much one reason only, is no one will ever see that bottom face. So when you delete it, it's just one less face the game has to render, and it just helps you out in the long run of not having to use extra resources that you don't have to. So I'm gonna tab over into edit mode, and I'm just gonna X, and we're just gonna delete faces, and now that is done there. Um, Now, if you're looking at it in face orientation, you'll see that everything's pointing the wrong way. But like I said, no one should really ever see that bottom face unless your building's floating for some reason, which I do not recommend. So anyway, so that's what we're gonna do there. And then the next thing we're gonna do is actually go back into edit mode. I'm gonna select this top face. Then I'm gonna go Shift S2. And what it'll do is it will move the cursor up to the center point of the selected face. So what that does is it puts it right on the surface of this top face, which it's kind of hard to see with how the lighting is in here. Um, but it's like right on the face there. So what that'll allow me to do is I will be able to go here and right click, and then we'll go set origin to 3D cursor, and that will move the origin of that object to the 3D cursor, and it will also move the location over here. So when we were designing this out, we decided to put the pad at 6 inches above ground level, or half a foot. So I'm just going to go here and go 0.5, and that's going to translate the shape down to where that top face is at 6 inches above ground level. So, and then next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna work on the apron that kind of rolls up to the doors. So like I said, X will be the front side. So we'll just go here back into edit mode. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this face. I'm gonna hit E to extrude it. I'm just gonna click out of it somewhere over here randomly. Like I said, I do all my stuff dimensional basically. So very rarely am I trying to extrude to like a perfect set. So because once you extrude it, you'll have this menu that pops up and you can manually set the distance. So we were gonna make this apron 15 feet. So I'm just enter 15 foot in there and it will set it to 15 feet. And then we'll go in here. I will go to uh, select the edge mode, where you can hit 2 on the keyboard, I believe. And we're just going to select this top edge. And we're going to switch over to global over here. And we're going to take that down to 0 feet. So now that what that's going to do is that edge should be perfect with where the ground level is inside the game. So it'll be just a clear right up into the bays, basically, is what we are attempting to do here. So once again, it does put a face underneath. We just really don't need that face. So just go back in here and delete it. And also, okay, so I did get rid of that line. Perfect. So basically, now we have a fairly simple mesh that is laid out here. So the next thing we're going to want to do is to set our scale and rotation. So we didn't necessarily rotate this, but we sure did edit the scale here, as you can kind of see over here. So to do that, you go Control A, and it'll bring up Apply. And we're going to go to rotation and scale. I generally don't try to use all transforms just in case, like, I do need to move something around. Um, it doesn't really matter if you do or not. It's just I never really have myself. But anyway, so we're just going to use rotation and scale. So as you're holding down Control A, you just click that, and it will set the scale to 1 and all the rotations to 0. So then, like, whenever you export, it doesn't make a weird thing kind of happening here. So now that we have all that done, generally I try to do most of my texturing in parts and not do it all at one time. That way, so then, like, as I'm building it in Blender, I can see how it'll look and see if there's something that I want to change instead of like texturing everything at one time and then having to go back in and do all that. So that's kind of the next thing we're going to do is to texture this. So I'm actually going to go up here and rename this. So we're going to name it uh, footer. Well, it's not really a footer, it's a pad. And then we're going to go down to material here. And it's already got a predefined material on it. So, but I generally try to leave that one there because it acts kind of like a dummy material. So anything new that you create will automatically have that one added to it. So generally what I do is I just go and create a new material and then I just subtract that one from it. It's still there. It's still selectable. I just don't try to use it. That was then there is a dummy material left behind. So once you do that, you'll hit new and it'll create a new material. I'm gonna call this mat underscore pad. So that way then I know it's a material and it's gonna be specific for the pad. This helps whenever you're like texturing in Substance Painter or exporting file names out. It just helps a lot being able to identify exactly what the materials are for. So, and then it doesn't really, I don't necessarily think it matters a ton, but I do try to change the base color. It doesn't do it any if you're in the viewport shading, but if you go to uh, the material or if you go to solid mode, it doesn't show it, but if you go to material or render, I think, yeah, render preview, it will show the color of it. So like for instance, it's green now, but it won't necessarily stay green. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab back into edit mode. I'm going to hit A to select all the faces on this object. I'm going to go to UV, Smart UV Project, and I'm just going to increase the scale margin up to 0.01 or just click that once. I'm going to hit OK. And now if we go over to the edit, the UV tab, this is our pad that is UV mapped. Everything is going to be about the same size as it should be. So that way everything will be equal to each other and you won't have like weird scaling issues within your text or in your textures. So now that we have that done, what we can do is go and export our mesh out. So I'll go File, I will go Export FBX, and we're going to go to Extra Drive, and then Modding. I'm just going to put this in. Where do I want to put this? Okay, I was like, tutorial folder, and we'll go placeable building. Okay, perfect. So now that we have that done, I'm just gonna go in here and create a folder that is called model because I'll save different things in here. So then I'll go FBX that way. So then I very much am heavy on folder usage. So I like to be able to put all my FBX files in a folder, and then like blend files and all that textures. And then like if you save your substance painter files, you can also use it. So I'm just save it in here, and we're just name it to pad.fbx. And then I'm just gonna limit to selected objects. There's not really any other objects other than the camera and the light, but once you get into doing this more, you'll want to limit the objects so that way you're not exporting your entire model out to try to texture it, basically. So now that that's done, I generally try to leave most everything else the way it is, and I'm just gonna export FBX, and it should export it. So the next thing we're gonna do is go and open up Adobe Substance Painter, and I will get back to you guys whenever it loads. Okay, so once again, I'm going to kind of breeze through the Substance Painter part of this just because I have done a couple Substance Painter tutorials. And once again, I'll try to link those here in the part of the video or in the video description, one of the two. But like I said, I kind of went through them. So to just try to save time on this video, I'm going to try to place through them just a little bit here. So close that. We're going to go File, New, and change this to, scroll down till you find Giants Engine. And I'm going to hit Select and go Modding Tutorial Folder, Placeable Building Tutorial Model FBX pad.fbx. We're going to use 2048 by 2048 textures. I don't really want to go any bigger because of file size, but if you go to like 1024, there's a good chance that your textures won't necessarily look the greatest. So, but we're just gonna do that. We'll hit OK. What we'll do is I'll bring the mesh itself into Substance Painter here. And the next thing we're gonna do is just bake mesh maps. So I'm gonna go here, change the output size to 4K, change dilation width down to 1. Apply diffusion. We're going to be using a low poly mesh to bake on because it's a very low poly mesh. Pretty much everything else can stay the same. We didn't vertex paint anything because it's all one material. So then once you have that done, go to bake selected things and it will kind of go off doing its thing. And on some of this, you can kind of notice some of the curvature. Like I said, that the angle on the apron is very minimal, so I doubt we see a ton on there, but uh, it is there. So so now that that's baked, you can kind of see everything kind of here. I didn't mean to rotate that around, but we'll try to rotate it somewhat back here. There we go. And then I'm just gonna try to mess around with some of these concrete textures. We're gonna try concrete plane. I'm just gonna drop it on there. And right now it looks like that. It looks very spaced out, doesn't look the greatest. So I'm going to go here and increase the tiling up to around 10, which looks better. You got to think this is like 80 by 85 feet. So try to, think about that as you're doing this stuff. So I'm probably going to go 15. It looks fairly decent. There's still enough texture that you can see that it's concrete, but it's not like, you know, giant at the same time. So now that that's done, that's really all you pretty much do. I'll go to File and Export Textures, and we're gonna go here and go back to W Drive, then tutorial folder, placeable building tutorial model. And I'll go here and name this folder textures. Hit select folder. We're going to go here and go down to Giants Engine 8 asset. And once again, if you guys, I did make that video earlier on back about having all the textures and all that stuff set up. So, like I said, I will link that in the video description in this segment or in the comment or in the description below. So output directory is good, output template's good. So we're just going to export it out. It'll automatically export everything out. As you can see, now we have our map pad diffuse, our map pad normal, and our map pad spec. So we'll go back to Blender here. We're going to go to shading, and we're going to go add. And we're going to search an image texture, which is giant. Then we'll go over here. We're going to go to open. Once again, go back to Modding Tutorial Textures. I'm just going to do diffuse on this one. So we'll load that in, and we're just going to take the color spot here, and we're going to drag it over to base color. And it will basically replace that green color that we set the material to earlier to the image of this diffuse texture now. So, and if you guys are curious kind of what that looks like, trying to, there we go. Kind of show it over here. So you can kind of tell where like the edges of the mesh actually exist and where they don't, because like the texture will like, get like a kind of a weird like stretched look in areas that like there's no faces at. That's just how texturing works. So we're gonna do this again, and we're gonna go image texture. And this time we're gonna load in the normal map. So I'm gonna go down here, textures, normal, open. But we're not going to link it directly. We're going to search again, normal map. We'll put that there, and then we'll route color down to there. We'll route alpha to there, and then we'll drag this normal down to here. And what the normal map will do will give us some depth to the concrete pad. So it doesn't look, it's fairly smooth. And then generally, I've always had a hard time adding the spec maps in via nodes in Blender. So I just generally do that in Giants Editor once we export everything out. I don't really know the exact settings to use, so I just kind of wait to do that till it's in GE. So anyway, that is kind of where we start the process off at here. Once again, it's kind of glossy at the moment, but once like you add in a spec map and it adds in that gloss layer, it should be a lot better. But anyway, that is kind of how we started off on creating a pad here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it helps. I will try to get like the next one out sometime the next week. I don't have a ton of time, so these videos are going to kind of take quite a bit of time between recording, setting everything up, editing, etc. So I unfortunately won't have an entire series overnight, but I will do my best on trying to create them as quickly as I can, but making them decent quality at the same time. So if you guys have any questions, please do feel free to reach out. I generally try to check YouTube comments every other day or so. I don't have enough time to sit down and check them all the time, but I generally try to get to most of the ones I can answer. Always feel free to reach out on like Messenger or if you go to the link tree that's in the video description, it'll have links to Discord and everything, and you can use those as well to be able to ask questions and everything. So anyway, I'm gonna try to drop these resources I used in the in like a file saved somewhere kind of thing. We'll see how it goes. But like I said, hopefully this video kind of helps, and hopefully it will give us kind of a running start into working on some more of a complex stuff. But other than that, hopefully it helped, and I will see y'all again some other time. Have a good one.